coming into this place. Can I just get everyone just to stand up and clap for a moment? We are healed. We are here to be healed. We are here to address trauma in our lives, right? Yes, definitely. So before we go any further, first and foremost, I just want to give respect and honor to Pastor Brian in the City of Light Church. I'm going to have this brother come up and share a few words as a welcome.
God bless you, everybody. God bless you. My name is Fred. I'm one of the leads here at City of Light Church. I'm standing in the gap for Pastor Brian, bringing you greetings from City of Light Church, where our heart and our goal is to help all people reach their God-given potential. Just wanted to make sure that we give you just a couple brief announcements. We're excited to be here and to be able to host such an amazing event. We all know that trauma is something that we all deal with, and working on how we can go through it, move through it, and trust God in it to be healed from it. So we're excited about that. One big thing, City of Light is coming up on their our fifth year, all right? And so we want to make sure that we let you know on the 25th, we'll have a block party here from noon to 5, and on the 26th, join us for our Sunday service at 10:30, and we are excited to be here, and we're excited for this event. God bless you, Marika.
Amen. Thank you again. Thank you again. You all can be seated for a moment. So I just wanted to share with you all a little bit about this healing gathering and the many faces that trauma has. As we know that trauma has many different faces. Trauma can come into our lives in different points of our lives, or for different reasons, or what have you. But I just wanted to say in here, the one thing that we all have in common is that we do want to see healing take place in our city, correct? There's so much trauma that's taking place, so much that's happening with our young people. Our youth are dying left and right, and there's so much trauma that's being caused within our community. And so I just wanted to bring our community together to not only heal what's going on outside in the community, but also what's going on within our families, within our own personal lives, because trauma has no respect of person. It doesn't say you're too young for trauma to come into your life. It doesn't say, oh, you're too old, or you're too this or too that. Trauma comes when trauma comes. We can't stop it, but we can know how to respond to it. And if it does come into our lives, we have tools that we're going to be able to apply into our lives so that trauma does not consume us, but we're able to overcome the trauma. And we no longer will have the lenses of trauma when we see ourselves or when we interact with others. That's the purpose of this event, is to deal with that trauma, to no longer sweep it under the rug. And so with no further ado, I first want to give mad respect to the band of the house on today. DH and the Next Level Band. You all may have seen them throughout the community or throughout the region, but they travel and they minister. So I hope you all enjoyed the sound of DH and the Next Level Band on tonight. And next, I would like to bring up the panelists. If the panelists can come, as they're coming, I will introduce each and every one of them. And I believe I started without even saying my own name. So I am Marika Rogers. I am a licensed professional counselor in the city of Milwaukee. And I'm the host of the event. And I'm just so grateful to be here. I'll be speaking a little bit later on in this gathering regarding different tips and tools that you can apply when it comes to trauma within relationships. So we're going to be dealing with different components of trauma on today. So first we have Abby Matthews. She's one of the clinicians. She'll be speaking a little later on today. And we have a community member. We have Kenyatta Davis. She'll be sharing her own personal testimony on how trauma impacted her life and how she is healing or has healed from it. Next, we have Lakeisha Russell. Welcome, welcome, welcome. She's another clinician as well. And she'll be speaking about trauma within families and addressing how trauma can impact the lives of loved ones, and how generational curses can go from one generation to the next if that trauma is not addressed. And so without further ado, we're going to start first with our community member. We have one more. We have, all the way from North Carolina, we have Michelle Grady. All right. So first, I was going to give each and every panelist an opportunity to briefly say hello and share one or two things that come. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Abby Matthews, and I'm just thankful for being here this evening. I've been a member of the Milwaukee community for 10, almost 15 years now, and I love this city, and I put my heart into it, and professionally and personally. So thank you for having me this evening, and I look forward to sharing information, but hearing from you all as well.
Thank you. Kenyatta.
Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Kenyatta Davis. I'm just excited to be here. I'm thankful for the opportunity to just speak, and I'm just asking God to work through our words and that healing takes place. I'm just very grateful to be in everyone's presence. So thank you for having me.
Well, certainly. Thank you. Lakeisha.
Yeah, I'm Lakeisha Russell, licensed professional counselor here in the state of Wisconsin. Marika is my business bestie, so anything she got going on, I'm like, yeah, girl, call me in, like, whatever. We are definitely passionate about mental health and healing our community for sure, starting with us as individuals, so that way we can reach beyond us.
Absolutely.
I'm Michelle Grady. I used to live here in Milwaukee for a while in 2009, and I stayed here for a few months, and I definitely have a heart for this city for sure, so I'm always coming back here. Plus, Marika's my best friend, so I'm always here. But yeah, I'm passionate about mental health as well, and just seeing the cities everywhere healed and start seeing people really, take mental health seriously. So I'm glad to be here on this platform.
Definitely. Thank you, ladies. Later on, we will have a male speaking and representing the fellas. I know y'all probably like, oh, we have a panel full of women. Where are the men? Well, rest assured, we definitely going to have Daniel Harris representing the guys a little later on today, so stay tuned, stay tuned. But first, I would like to have Kenyatta Davis share her own personal experiences regarding trauma. So first, if you can explain, how would you define trauma and the effects of it?
Okay. How would I define trauma? Oof. Well, I don't know the textbook definition, but I know what trauma looks like. I'm sorry, it's too close. It's a very loaded question. I know for me, trauma began, I believe, in the womb. I was, born to someone, and my mother, she didn't expect to become pregnant with me, and then growing up in a very traumatic environment, dealing with emotional and physical abuse, it became ingrained in me, I guess. And so the roots were there from from the very beginning. So when I think of trauma, I think of the roots of dysfunction, confusion, uncertainty, everything that God is not when you think about it. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And one thing that really stood out to me is that you said that it was pretty much like ingrained. Like that's pretty deep when something is ingrained. It's like interwoven. And so can you share a little bit about how it affected you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I'm a grown woman now, but trauma has definitely affected every aspect of my life, and even me being an adult, still unlearning certain things that, unfortunately, I just didn't know at the time. So, growing up, like I said before, I grew up in a very traumatic, home environment. I was raised by my grandmother. My mother was in and out of jail. I didn't know who my father was. And so even in that dynamic, when we speak about generational curses, they are real. Looking back now, I did not understand, but now I can see that my grandmother, may she rest in peace, she was a broken woman. And so a lot of those unhealed things, unfortunately, I was the catalyst for that. So I grew up not liking how I looked, being confused, feeling like an alien, like an outcast. It was always spoken about how different I was. So I grew up feeling, and honestly, not black enough, because that was something that was always pointed out to me. And that is very traumatic, being around people, but being told that you're not, but you know that you are. So that's just adds an additional layer to it. So that definitely affected the way I viewed family and what the family dynamic looks like. So, unknowingly, when I would meet men or have friendships, I would place those same expectations of what I thought a family was onto them, which caused me to be sometimes clingy. And I didn't know at the time. I just felt like, hey, you're my friend. I love you. Why don't you love me the way my mother is supposed to? But that's an unnecessary burden that they shouldn't have to carry, but I wasn't aware of it. So just all those things. And even when I had my daughter, I was a single mom. I had my daughter at 19 years old, and I was homeless. So that's another layer. And even at the time, I did not realize that what I was experiencing was postpartum depression, but it was. And I just thank God that I'm able to look back now and be alive. But dealing with those suicidal thoughts, dealing with the depression, dealing with the anxiety, the panic attacks, and being a survivor of multiple suicide attempts, that it just, it's all ingrained for trauma. But one thing I do realize, and I know now, is that God uses your pain for purpose. And even as I'm still learning, because I don't know it all, and there's still things about me that I'm still, unlearning. It's an everyday process. But one thing I'm grateful of is for my triggers, because they let me know where I'm not necessarily healed all the way yet. And even for those moments where I tried to take my life multiple times. One time I ended up in Rogers Memorial, and I remember my former friends at the time, I would always tell them how I would feel, and sometimes people, they don't have the capacity to understand, and sometimes they just don't want to, because it's like whatever, because mental health can be so vague, so it's like sometimes you can't even explain it. It's like what you're feeling, what you're going through, but how do you explain it to somebody else? But I remember when I was in there, and there were teachers, a young lady, I don't remember her name, but I remember she was a teacher, but I felt so understood because they all got it. They all were not judging me. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't seeing things, I was just tired. And it's been a journey since then. I haven't, tried to commit suicide since, but, I have had the thoughts. It's been a very, very long time, because it's a process again. But I'm just thankful that I'm able to look back now, and I believe that God uses our pain for our purpose. And I didn't have someone growing up to talk to me about these things. But I'm just hopeful and prayerful that someone will be able to be touched by what I have to say. So I don't want to get too long-winded, because I have a lot to say in this, but hopefully that. So.
Oh, you're good. I have a follow-up question. So as you are in your healing journey right now, can you describe what that has been like for you?
Yeah. One thing, like I said, like I mentioned briefly, is the triggers. Healing is a process. It's not linear. I always see it online. It's like a little picture. Like healing is not linear. One day you're up, one day you're down. And I think that some people think that healing, everything is going to be fine, and no, it's not. It's not. I still question myself about certain things. I still, certain areas I may need to dig a little bit deeper in. But healing is acknowledging. I think that's the first step, to say, hey, this isn't cool, or this isn't okay. Accepting where you are, but also accepting the progress that I've made. And that's something that I have recently been having to tell myself the last couple of days. Like, I have made a lot of progress, but we don't give ourselves pats on the back for what we have accomplished. We look at what we have not. And so when you always look at the have-not, you can find yourself diminishing your own progress, and you become your own worst enemy, because it was a time where I was my own worst enemy. But healing is up and down. It's recognizing the triggers when they come, whether it's when you meet someone. Sometimes you may meet someone, you're like, what in the world? And it's maybe something in that person may remind you of something that somebody else did that, caused you trauma. Or when you hear certain things, how do you feel? Just being very in tune of all of those. So I think that's really important when it comes to healing, just being in tune, with everything, every emotion, your mind.
Thank you for sharing. Can y'all please clap it up for Kenyatta sharing her testimony? You know, that was very brave of you to even share, you know, the fact that you have had some challenges in your life and you've struggled with suicide. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real thing, you know, and not enough individuals are understanding of that and supportive of that. So I'm going to speak on behalf of everyone in this room and say how brave you are. And it is to even share that publicly with everyone. So I commend you on that. Thank you. And I know that we have a certain order, but because of some of the things you touched on, and I know that this is like your area of families, so can you just pass the mic to Lakeisha really quickly? So she started out speaking about trauma in the womb. So as a clinician, can you speak from that perspective on how trauma can impact the lives of the mother as well as the unborn child?
Yeah, most definitely. And so what we would call that in utero. And so trauma right in the womb. And I would see it a lot because I do work with a lot of children. And, you know, parents are wondering, like, well, why are they, you know, just can't sit down, can't sit still, you know, they're crying all the time and things like that. And when I'm doing my intake, the number one question I always ask them, how was your pregnancy? You know, and I kid you not, 9 out of 10, maybe 10 out of 10, for those kids that are referred to me with the behavioral and emotional concerns, every single mother is like, I battled depression while pregnant with them. And I was just like, okay. And so we don't realize what we're going through is connected and Marika said it well, interwoven into the baby, the umbilical cords, all of the stuff, those neurons that are connected, that baby is getting all of that. And you know, one thing, you know, if I got pregnant moms in here or moms that have struggled with depression and wonder why their kids might be acting out or whatnot, it's not your fault. And that's one thing I always have to make sure I tell the mothers because, you know, when you help them make that connection, you do feel guilty, like it's your fault. And I'm like, no, it's not your fault. Like, you're here today to help them, but we're also going to help you too, because at the end of the day, you're still struggling with your depression. And so in order to help break those cycles, you got to learn skills to help change what your child is seeing.
Thank you for sharing that. So next we're going to move on to our next community member from North Carolina. Michelle, some of the same questions that I just asked Kenyatta, can you please share your testimony, your story when it comes to trauma and the impacts of it? But first, can you please define what you see trauma as?
I'd have to agree. Trauma definitely is something that I see that's interwoven as well. That starts within the womb for sure. And it's just the impact of things that continue happening throughout our lives. And sometimes it definitely goes beyond that womb experience. And so it's like the initial impact, yes, definitely the womb. But once you come out, life just continues to hit you, right? And so over and over again, we experience trauma in different situations, different circumstances, and different areas with different people. And so I really feel like trauma is something that can continually be a part of our lives, and we just have to start recognizing it. And for me, trauma definitely started in the womb, for sure. My mom, she was definitely on drugs. She had 6 children, so there are 3 boys and 3 girls. And my mom wanted girls so bad, so she continued having children so that she can have her girls. And one question that was always common amongst family members or people that knew my mom was, why are you having so many children? And her response was, I just want someone to love me. And that goes to show, like, that trauma is also generational, right? It's something that it goes way back. And so because of the things that she had experienced, she wanted so badly to have somebody love her. So she just continued having children. And then when she got to her girls, she was real excited. But most of us were born with drugs in our system. I myself, she tried to abort me. She wasn't able to go to a clinic because I believe back then it cost. And so this is kind of graphic, so I apologize, but she tried to stick a hanger up to remove her mucus plug when she was pregnant with me. She took pills. She drank alcohol, a lot of it trying to take my life, pretty much. And I am a miracle baby because when I was born, I had no drugs in my system. And there was absolutely nothing wrong with me. And I was actually overweight for a child. So after that, after being born into that, my mom continued to do drugs. She continued to, be exposed to all types of things. And because of that, I was in and out of foster care. Most of the foster homes that I was in were extremely abusive. I had maybe 2 fairly good experiences with foster parents, but I went through 15 different foster homes. And so I began to struggle with my identity because I felt like as a child, I was never good enough. Nothing that I could do was ever good enough, and it was very difficult for me to feel accepted. So when I was going through these different foster homes, it was intense because I began to learn how to kind of be a chameleon, and morph into the environment that I was in because I wanted so desperately to be loved that, oh, this family does this, so how can I in turn make myself become a part of this, right? Because rejection is a real thing, and I believe that probably every single one of us have dealt with rejection in one way or another, but it hit my life extremely hard because of what I experienced from the womb and then going into foster care over and over again. And I'm going to try to shorten this up, but when I was about 7 years old, I went back to live with my mother. And I was with her for 3 years. And during that 3-year period, about 6 months, she was clean. And I was so proud of my mom. And even at 7 years old, I didn't fully understand what was going on, but I knew that I was back home for the first time. And because the other homes were really abusive, it felt almost like a relief, to be back home. And so for about 6 months, she was clean. I remember her waking up every morning, having bags of lunch and stuff for us, giving us kisses, making sure that we went to school. And that was probably the best experience that I had ever had with her or with a mother in general. And then about 6 months later, she relapsed and she went back into drugs. Before I knew it, there were men in and out of our homes. And so, of course, that was a breeding ground for molestation and rape and things like that. And although I was one of the younger ones, I have a little sister that's right up under me. I was always the most mature, but because I had to, right? And then I also was the protector of the family. I was the mother of the family, and so I was scourged because of that quite often. So long story short, when I became 10 years old, we ended up leaving our home again. And from there, I never went back home. So trauma continued to try to take my life. And through that trauma, of course, I also tried to commit suicide. I took pills. I did everything I possibly could. I wanted to die so bad. I prayed, and I asked God to take my life. It was that intense for me. And I remember I woke up because I took as many pills as I can find in whoever's cabinet. And when I woke up, I was so angry. And I was so upset because I did everything I could. And for some reason, I was still alive. And I didn't have so much as a headache, a stomach ache, or anything when I woke up. And I just remember asking God, why? Like, why am I still here? Because I didn't understand purpose. And although I was saved at a very young age, that was hard for me to comprehend what my purpose was and why God was like, I still, want you here. So about maybe 3 weeks later, I look back at my journal and I just sat and I cried and I thanked God that I was still alive. I thanked him for my life at that point. And that after that, like I realized, just kind of going back to what you were saying about the family dynamics, me not having that as I got older, I really started to look for those things, right? Because I desperately wanted a mom. I desperately felt like I needed a mother, and I didn't know really any of my family aside from, the 6 siblings that my mom had. So I didn't have a sense of identity. I was like, I don't know my grandparents. My grandparents were alive. They never met me. They never wanted to meet me. And so there's rejection there. You know what I mean? So it was this constant thing throughout my life. And so I began to misappropriate relationships with, especially women, especially in the church, y'all. Can we talk about that part? Especially in the church. Like, women actually, women of God would latch on to me. And, you can see brokenness on people, especially if you were as broken as I was. You can see that. You can identify that very easily. And so I became kind of like this target for people. And because my heart wanted to be loved, I wanted to love someone as well. I found myself kind of in that same thing, wanted somebody to love me like my mom did. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but I misappropriated those relationships, and then those relationships became abusive. And those relationships became secrets that I couldn't tell anybody. And before I knew it, I was an adult in an unhealthy mother-daughter relationship because of the trauma that I had experienced, and I wasn't yet healed, and I didn't even realize it. And just like, someone who takes a child and, weans them into trying to gain their trust, this was happening to me as an adult. And I didn't even recognize it because I was unhealed. So everything I was doing, I was looking through the lenses of being unhealed, right? And so sometimes when we deal with trauma, we'll take on everything that comes with the one thing that we feel like we need. So I needed a mom. So I took on the abuse. I took on, the talking down to me. I took on all those things, and I became very loyal to something that was detrimental for my life because of the trauma that I had experienced. And I don't know how many of you all have experienced that, but sometimes being loyal is not the healthiest thing. And so I found myself in this cycle of being loyal to people that weren't loyal to me, or that meant no good for me, but only harm. So, that lasted probably, that particular relationship, I was 19 at the time, I believe, 18 or 19. And that had to last about 8 years. And it went from having someone that treated me like they were my mom, and they were there for me. They made sure I had everything I needed. I didn't have to worry about anything, to all of a sudden tearing apart my relationships and telling me, oh, you can't, have this person using God to manipulate me at that, right? And saying, oh, well, God doesn't want you talking to this person. And because my heart wanted to please God, I began to do everything that they said. And before you knew it, I was brainwashed, and I became a robot to everything that was being told to me. So for years, I was enslaved to that. And even then, once again, I tried to kill myself because I felt like, one, I was disappointing God, because now I'm in this unhealthy, demonic relationship, really, that wants to take my life, but I didn't know how to get out. And so, again, there's that trauma, right, that kind of hit me once again. And so when I finally got out of that, praise the Lord, that was a healing process that God began to do in me even while I was still in it, right? God just began to kind of show me, this is where this started, or this is why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, this is why you're experiencing the things that you're experiencing. And so when I look back now, 5, 6, 7 years later, I'm like, good God Almighty, like, how did I come out of that? But I'm thankful because I'm still here, so, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your testimony and for your transparency. It's not easy to talk about traumatic events that has happened in our lives. Oftentimes, we may feel ashamed or embarrassed about our story, but your story is your story, and it's not to be ashamed about. Own your story, but don't let your story consume you, or, don't let it consume you. Now, I'm going to pause for a second. Musicians, give us some sound, please. We're going to shift for a moment. Psalmists, can y'all please prepare to come up? Ladies, give me one moment. We can stand up. We're going to get some sound in here, y'all. Y'all ready? All right. So for the first portion, as you all have already heard, we heard stories of community members sharing their stories and their testimonies on how trauma has impacted their lives, but not controlling their lives. That's the biggest thing that we want to take note of. So just in your own minds, if you can think of anything that has impacted your life, something traumatic, even if it didn't happen to you directly, if you're in this space, if you're watching right now, the purpose of this event, or the gathering, should I say, is to address those traumatic thoughts or those traumatic memories, those things that have tried to grab a hold of you and control your life, or to cause you to look at life or interact with others through the lenses of trauma. But no longer from this day forward will we be dealing with those things, but we're going to address them on tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to move on and let the psalmist sing.
Exceedingly, abundantly, above all you could ask or think, according to the power that worketh in you. Able to do just what he said he would do. He's gonna fulfill every promise to you. Don't give up on God, 'cause he won't give up on you. He's able. Abundantly, above all There's no mountain too high, no valley too low, no mountain too high, no valley too low. He's able, he's able, he's able, he's able, he's able, he's able. There's nothing he can't do except lie. There's nothing he can't do except lie. He's able, 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 he's able. If you need him, he's able. Go on and try him. He's able. If you need him, he's able. He's able. He's able. He's able to do just what he said he would do. He's gonna fulfill every promise to you. Don't give up. Don't give up on God, 'cause he won't give up on you. Don't give up. Don't give up on God, 'cause he won't give up on you. Don't give up. Don't give up on God, 'cause he won't give up on you. He's able.
Amen. Don't give up on God, because he won't give up on you, right? You know, I was sitting in the back thinking to myself, trauma can make you think that you are not worthy. Trauma can make you think you losing your mind. Trauma can have you questioning everything in your life. You can look in the mirror and not even recognize who you are because of trauma. And just as the name of this particular gathering is the many faces of trauma, trauma can have you taking off one face and putting on another, right? You can be at home and dealing with your trauma, or maybe ignoring the trauma or what have you. But then when you go out into the community and interact with others, you put on that face to make individuals believe that you're not going through something, but on the inside, there's so much pain, there's so much hate, so much shame, so much whatever that's going on the inside of you. But that face that you put on, it doesn't look like trauma's really that thing that you're dealing with. But so today, if you are in here and you have walked in with that face to interact with others, take that mask off. This is a safe space. This is a safe space for you to just let go, let God be you, the authentic version of you. Because I truly believe, I sometimes tell my clients this: if trauma has been the lens that you look at others through, or that you look at yourself through, you've only met the trauma version of you. And trauma is not you. Your name not trauma. Your birth certificate does not say trauma, whatever your last name is. So today, again, I really want to encourage you, if you are in here and you walk through the door with that mask to just cover up that trauma, it's okay. Remove it. I've been there. If that makes you feel more comfortable. I've been there. I'm a clinician. I'm a mental health clinician. Been in the field over 10 years. But guess what? Trauma doesn't have a respect of profession. Trauma don't care that I'm a clinician. Life happens. We can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control what we do after, right? We can control how we respond to what happens in our lives. So you all can be seated. We're going to move on to the second portion of the gathering. We're going to bring up the the panelists again. So ladies, please join me on the stage. Y'all clap it up for the panelists. So for this particular portion, we're going to be speaking about different tools, techniques, things that we, and I'm saying we because we all can use them no matter what your profession is, right? We can all use and apply to our lives. And another part of this gathering is an application piece. So if there's someone that you feel like you may need to reconcile with, if there's some issues within your family, someone you need to get on the phone, there's going to be an opportunity for you to do that at the conclusion of this gathering. Is that okay? Because we are after generational curses. We're after healing families. We're after healing individuals. We are after healing a community. So the first clinician we have is Abby. Y'all clap it up for Abby. So the focus area that Abby has is trauma in the community. And so I know that I sent you a few questions, so we're just going to flow. So first, can you please define how you see trauma as a clinician, and then also the impact that trauma has made within the community?
Yeah, absolutely. I define trauma as an event that is too overwhelming for the system to recover on its own. It doesn't have the resource to do it. And so in that state of shock and in that state of overwhelm, there is an imprint that takes place. You heard many of the panelists talk about this evening about their own personal experience, but this also happens in communities. And just as people need to be seen and heard when those events happen and they need safety, so do our communities. There's too many that are being left to the side and discredited for what has happened to them as a group. And so you have individuals that might have had their own experiences coming together with wicked things that are happening out here, things that make no sense. And everyone is suffering and carrying this on themselves. So as I talk about community trauma, I also want to talk about community resiliency. I don't want to discredit what's happening. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of hurt. And it's hard to feel safe enough even to call it out, what is happening, or to reach out to someone else who saw what happened and feel like you can come vulnerably to them and say, this is really hard. I can't just keep going to work. I can't just keep looking down my block and seeing all this pain and suffering. Something has to give, right? But we have to create those safe spaces. And maybe that starts in our home. Maybe it starts with just listening or inviting the conversation. We're sitting in City of Light Church, and we really do practice that, trying to go out into this world and being a light, right? But we should never feel pressure for ourselves to open up faster than we feel like we're able to. It's a process, and it takes time to feel safe enough to be able to even breathe, to say, what is happening? What am I noticing in my body? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What has this imprint done to me? Who am I? And that's a lot of what we've talked about, leading up to this as well. The same is true for communities. What has happened here? What is the history of this place? How did it start? Where did we start as a group of people? And the more we can have conversations with one another, especially in neighborhoods, we'll learn so much about the resources and the wealth and the knowledge that's in the community. People that may have living on the same blocks for 20, 30 years, and they'll tell you if we stop to ask. And they also have some solutions that maybe we've never heard of before. And so I guess with all the things that are happening in our city and in our world, I just want to invite us all to think about the opportunities we have to heal together. Communities often have a lot of their own answers. They don't always need outside people coming in and saying, this is what you need to do to fix yourself. They need to be seen and they need to be supported.
Absolutely. So one particular area as far as community trauma, we've been seeing a lot of our youth, a lot of our young people are kind of just driving and, stealing vehicles and just kind of just in a place of rage, to say the least. So if there's a mother that's watching or mother that's here who has a youth who is going through a lot of different things and a lot of trauma is coming into their home based off of the community or based off of their child's interactions within their friend circle, what would you say to that parent in this moment?
There's so much aggression in the entire community, in this world. But our young people particularly are faced with that energy that comes out of that aggression. Microaggressions, those things that are said and not said. And they receive that. And from that, unfortunately, but I'm not blaming, right, they start to identify with who they are in a different way. So as a parent or someone who cares for someone who is younger, I mean, just in general, you know, try to be that listening ear for that person and just try to also put yourself in their shoes. This is a different time. Of course, many generations say that, but there's so much hate that is being also directed towards young people. And if I went back to my definition of trauma, this is stress that is too overwhelming to manage with the resources that we have. And so, you know, having those conversations, but then also what resources, how can I be there for you? And can I role model any of that? You know, if someone is not open to receiving help from, you know, other people or other systems, are they willing to have a conversation with me in the kitchen, you know, when we're done with dinner? Because having those vulnerable moments where people can show up and be seen and be heard is therapy. And you don't have to necessarily, coming from a therapist, go to college and have a certain credential to be therapeutic to someone else and in their life. And so it can be so simple. I think we've gotten away from some of the simplest solutions, and really it's just actively listening and not trying to listen for the purpose of what you're going to say next or from your perspective what may be going on, but intently listening to that young person and really trying to understand their feeling and their thoughts behind whatever they're struggling with.
I completely agree with what you just shared. A lot of the youth, they feel unheard. And so what happens when you feel unheard? You act out, right? Like, no, you're going to hear me one way or another, whether it's through my voice or my actions, you're going to hear me. So thank you so much, Abby. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I just want to add one last thing is that, you know, I'm a social worker also by credential, and there's different levels to an approach that needs to happen. With community trauma, this isn't just an individual approach. In fact, it needs to be a macro approach. We have to make sure that we have equitable opportunities across neighborhoods. We need to make sure that we have buildings and infrastructure that is cared for so that people actually feel more safe and comfortable in their neighborhood. And we need to also work with individuals to break down any barriers that a lack of trust or broken relationships, you know, from the imprint of community trauma may have had in communities, because there's so much strength in moving together as a group. So I just wanted to put that out there too, that individuals with resources and privilege and access to other things, they need to be moving those things into communities that need that support as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're just going to move on to you, Lakeisha. We're going to be focusing on, in this particular portion, trauma within families, as I kind of made note earlier on today. And so some of the same questions: how would you define trauma? And then also, can you speak as a clinician, how does trauma impact the lives of different family members?
Yeah, I think everybody said it well tonight about how you define trauma. And I think one thing I always find myself saying, trauma is subjective, meaning what's traumatic for me might not be traumatic for her, and vice versa. And so, you know, not to dictate somebody else's trauma. And to give an example, clear as day, I always use this example. One year, my car was robbed out of. So, you know, wasn't nothing taken out of it but clothes I was going to give to the Goodwill. And, you know, that was traumatic for me because that's never happened. Like, my personal space was invaded, you know, and I felt violated. And what I noticed for me as I was driving back home through the alley, like my heart started racing really fast. I started having thoughts like, oh my gosh, what if they come back and this time try to get in the house? Like, so, for me, that was a traumatic event. So that's an example of trauma, right? My body started feeling all of that, as Abby talked about, like it's in our body, that imprint. And so, I had to do some CBT, right? So cognitive behavioral therapy. So where I'm talking to myself with my thoughts like, but Lakeisha, I don't think they gonna come back, and if they do, they not gonna get in the house because you have alarm systems, like all this stuff, right? And so that kind of helped change how I felt. So instead of being anxious, I started to feel more calmer, which changed my behavior just to be, content and my body being loose and not tight. But trauma is subjective. It's different for each person, but it is an event that you feel is overwhelming, as Abby stated before, and how it impacts families. Man, like it's overwhelming.
Child doesn't have a voice. And so, how can that impact them when they go to school? They don't want to volunteer. They don't really want to speak up. They don't probably want to have friends or what have you. So many different scenarios that can come from feeling like you can't be heard in your own household. You have something to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I mean, I think we all, like she said, has heard that, right? But one thing that I found that really kind of stuck to was when something went on as far as like sexual abuse in the home, right? And so it became this thing of you protect the predator, and the victim never gets a voice. And so that was something that I had experienced in my own life where I was always trying to protect the predator and never being able to voice, how I felt, and then there's that loyalty thing again. You better not tell, because you love this person, or this person, is supposed to be this in your life, or whatever the case may be, especially in church. The same thing goes, right? It's this idea that as a victim, you don't get to say anything ever. And so I just wanted to share that, because that getting swept under the rug stuff, it hurts you more than it will ever help you or your community even. It's no joke. And so I want to encourage anyone in here that may have been a victim like that to know you do have a voice. Your voice does matter, and don't use your time and your voice trying to protect the predator.
Thank you for sharing that. So, did you have anything else you wanted to add regarding families?
I think it's kind of like self-explanatory, like what we're talking about with generational curses. What we don't heal, we leave for our children to do. And I think I want us to remember that even me as a mother, right, I struggled with low self-esteem. And I knew in order for me to break that, I had to do some individual work on me so my daughter didn't have to go through that. And as we're talking about those generational curses, it's more so in our behaviors. Because one thing I stress to parents is our kids do what they see. We could tell them all day long, right? Like, you are beautiful, you are loved. But if they see mommy, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm stupid, what do you think your child is going to be doing? As much as you're telling them they're this and they're that, but they see you doing the opposite. So what you think they going to do?
That's a really good point. We are the model for our own children. And also, even in the community, even if you're not an actual parent who birthed a child or parented a child, as adults, we're still the model that the youth are watching. I wanted to, sorry, go. Yeah.
Hello? About what Lakeisha mentioned with the trauma and the physical abuse. But I was well, not sexually, I dealt with many forms of abuse. But I wanted to speak about verbal, because that is something that I endured a lot growing up. There were just a lot of negative things spoken over me about the way I looked, the way I talked, the way I act, curse words that I'm not going to say. And just being an adult, and there's been times where I've been out and can't tell anyone how to parent, but I would just hear certain things that would kind of trigger me to where I was that little girl again. So just being, I guess, aware of that, of our words have power over our children. And the generational curses is real, because me being a single mom, I'm not perfect, I make mistakes, but having that voice. I didn't have a voice growing up, and that's one thing I always tell my daughter is to use your voice. Don't let nobody silence you, because you do have a voice and your voice matters. But growing up, again, we're told to be quiet, sit there. When adults talk, don't speak, get out the room. You see something, shut up. And if you speak up, then you're punished for doing the right thing. So I just wanted to mention the physical, speaking.
And don't be afraid to unlearn things. Just because our mama and daddy and they grandmamas and them did it, don't necessarily mean that we got to do it that way. And I say that because oftentimes, I get adults, right, in my office, and we doing the work so they can forgive their parents. And one thing I stress too is our parents only did the best that they knew how. So giving them grace in that process is a big thing. But again, don't be afraid to unlearn, because we don't have to do what mom and them did before us.
That's a great point. And it's something that you just said, Kenyatta, as far as when you have heard certain things, when you're out and about, and it reminds you of that little girl inside of you. So that kind of brings me to my portion. So I'll be kind of speaking about what I identified as the little boy or the little girl that's on the inside of us, because we all have it, no matter if we're adults, so it's okay. But sometimes that portion of us is unhealed. And so you may have interacted with someone and they're triggered by maybe something you did or something you said, and that little boy or that little girl rises up in them in your interaction, and all of a sudden you think that you are talking almost to a child, but they're chronologically or an adult. And so the inner workings of addressing what that trauma felt like as that child. So if someone is interacting with you and all of a sudden you see like a 10-year-old come out of them, maybe when they were 10 years old, they were abused at some level. They experienced some type of traumatic event, and it went unresolved. And so because of that, yeah, they're chronologically in their 30s, but that 10-year-old boy still resides in them. And every now and then, something that triggers them, it causes that 10-year-old boy to take the forefront and that adult man to take the back seat. Or it could be a woman, either way, vice versa. But that those trigger words, they sting. Y'all know the saying, sticks and stones may break your bones, but what? Words will never hurt you. Words hurt. Words can be something that could either stop you in your tracks, or it can be something that can help you to move forward, depending on whether or not it's positive or whether or not it may have been negative. But those words can stick with you. So it's just like you getting ready for work or school, and as you are loading up your purse, your book bag, your whatever bag you have, and those words are going with you everywhere you go throughout your day. And so if you hear that word not only in your own mind, but also exterior from someone else's mouth to your ears, you're hearing it more than one time. So what could that do to you? It can cause you to what? Snap. To say the least. We're human, right? We all have emotions. We can't avoid it. But the way that we respond, I encourage a lot of individuals to first identify those triggers, those trigger words. That takes the power out of them. When you can identify them, you're taking your power back. So whether it is that word that you're stupid, you're ugly, you're this or you're that, no, I take the power out of that word. No longer will those words control me. And when you are able to identify what the word is, you can replace it with something different. No, I'm beautiful. Affirmations, I love affirmations. I don't know about y'all, but I love affirmations. I'm beautiful, I'm intelligent, I'm a leader, I'm this or I'm that. You can set those words in place to reset your whole entire life, your whole entire day, opposed to being in a place of just dragging that trauma bag around with you. It's invisible, but it's there. But how about you empty that bag tonight? And you replace it with the affirmations of, you are beautiful, you're more than enough, you're worthy. Whatever affirmation that comes to mind, you replace those negative words, those trigger words with that. Is that all right, y'all? We're going to do some actual application tonight. We're going to deal with some things. And I'm not going to ask you to come up to the mic and speak or anything of the sort. You're going to do it within yourself, right where you're sitting or where you're standing. You can address those trigger words, that trauma or what have you. So ladies, well, first of all, do y'all have any questions for the panelists before I allow them to take their seats? Any questions, comments? No? Okay. All right, give it up for the panelists. Thank you, ladies. Musicians, take us up. So I have 3 individuals I'm gonna bring up, and I want them to kind of share a few different things. After that, we're gonna do some of the application that I've been speaking about, and then we're gonna thank God for your freedom and your liberty from trauma, and we're gonna go home. Is that okay? All right. First, I would like to bring up Representative Moore. State Representative Moore. I know that he's a part of a mental health council, so I wanted to bring him up and share a few words.
Peace, everybody. How you doing? So my name is State Representative Supreme Moore Omokunde. People don't like to say my daddy's last name, but you could try next time. So I represent the 17th Assembly District, and you're currently in the 17th Assembly District, so if you don't live around here, welcome. Peace, I see you. I won't say your nickname. This light. I can't avoid the light. So, yeah, I'm going to come down. Still in the light. So how y'all doing? First and foremost, give it up for Dr. Marika Rogers real quick. And she's been doing some amazing work. I sit on the State Assembly's Committee on Mental Health, and one of the conversations that you were always having with people was, something wrong with you. You need therapy. You need therapy. You need therapy. So it was a constant phrase that we kept hearing. And so what I did, we had a session called You Need Therapy. And we brought on some professionals. And Dr. Rogers was one of our professionals that we brought on. And we talked about the concept because you need therapy is also often used as a jab. Something wrong with you. You need therapy. You didn't do something I wanted you to do. You probably need therapy. And so the idea was, what is therapy? We all need therapy. What kind of therapy do we need, and what does that look like? I got a part 2 coming up because we still need to have the conversation. It started off as something we did for Black History Month. Then I did it, but we need to continuously have that conversation. And the therapist, the sister talked about community trauma. And that's our next thing we need to talk about. When we talk about housing, when we talk about violence, citizen-to-citizen violence, when we talk about police violence, state-sanctioned violence, all of that is trauma that's created in our communities. So I'm just glad to be here. I'm so glad that, myself and Dr. Rogers had conversations about gathering spaces before. It's good to be here. The jewels that's been dropped so far have been great. So, again, I want to thank Dr. Rogers for being committed to doing this work because it can't be easy. And I remember one time I asked her, I said, who do you go see? She said, I got somebody I see. And so it can't be easy to do this work. And I want to thank her for her steadfastness and everybody who helped put this together. And I want to say thank y'all again. Peace.
Okay, next we were going to have Cheryl Hernandez.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Hernandez, and I am the co-owner of City Transformation Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with my husband. I own it with my husband, and what we do is we provide visitation services, we provide parent advocacy for children and parents that have children in the foster care system. And so one of the things that we've done as an agency is we don't just provide a safe place or a safe building or a safe room for families, but we provide that advocacy. What we have seen over the 5 years that we've had the agency is so many parents, their children that have a lot of advocates and people that are working for them, but most of our parents don't have anyone that is on their side or anyone that's fighting for them or letting them know these are your rights if you have children in foster care. And so that's what we do. We provide parent coaching for parents, and so they're sitting with their children and they don't know how to raise or to govern or to even interact with their children once they've been traumatized really by the foster care system. And so that's what we do on a daily basis. We have a staff of about 7 people. One of my staff members, my lead, is here, and so we're learning, we're training, and we are restoring hope to families, because our goal is to see these families reunified. So many other professionals in the lives of these families are trying to get kids placed in a different environment versus their home environment, and what we're looking to do is to help parents get their kids back home, because that's the best and the safest place for children once the parents are healed and the children are healed. And so we also believe that we're breaking generational curses of the foster care system, of children being raised in out-of-home care. And so that's what we do. We do that through advocacy, and we do that through prayer, and we do that through all the ways that we see help families. And so this year alone, we have seen about 15 families reunified because of the way we conduct business. Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Rogers.
Next, I have Miss Danita Graham.
Hello, hello, you wonderful people. I think it is so amazing for all of you to come out today in the honor of trauma, in the mind and mode of healing. Because the fact of the matter is that each and every one of us has something to heal. Each and every one of us has experienced something that we did not plan to, something that knocked us down, something that has us inside, speaking to that little girl or boy that is weeping, that is sad, that is afraid. And so, like Miss Marika said, my name is Danita. I have dedicated my career, my work, my family to healing. I am the generational curse breaker in my family. It took me a long time to know that, to believe that, and to stop running from that. So many things in my childhood, in my adulthood, I experienced that I shouldn't have had to. And so I stand before you today with my work in the privilege to speak past the things that I have experienced and be excited to help people in front of me, behind me, around me, to heal from their experiences. So I am a licensed advanced practice social worker. I am currently a marriage and family clinician at a clinic in Madison. And I am the proud and new owner of First Love Yourself Therapy. I got into therapy, and I realized that it is me. It is my life, and I want to use my life to help save the lives and families of other people who look like me and who are becoming and learning to fly. Learning to first love yourself is the first step in that. I realized through my relational traumas and different things that I experienced that I didn't. In fact, when I looked in the mirror, I hated everything that I was. And so it took therapy. It took being honest. It took hurting and saying, I'm sad, I'm broken, but I want to change that. And I have the power to change that. And that's the beginning. Unconditional acceptance of self. And so that's where the name comes from. That's what this shirt comes from. That's what this mask comes from. And we all talked about words and the power of our words. I had to speak that over myself. So, big thing. What I really, I was supposed to tell y'all why I done went everywhere else. Because it's just my story, and it's in everything. It's laced through everything, right? So now that I learned that the power of words and to speaking over myself, and stop hiding my gifts and accept my position with the Lord, He gave me the words. And He told me that if I used His words, if I spoke His words, I would be walking in my authority. And it was only then that I was able to join a collective of other authors in an anthology series entitled Beneath the Surface, Life Under the Mask. And so the title of my chapter is Learn to Fly. And so I invite you to find that book read that chapter. It is currently on Amazon. If you follow me on Facebook, my name is Danita Graham. You will find the link. The PDF is $1. If you want the hard copy, you might need the hard copy to read it and hold it and touch it. Write in the margins, highlight some things, because healing is a life journey. So, start today, start tomorrow, keep moving forward, and heal, y'all.
Thank you, Danita. And I know I didn't tell this person I was going to call on them, but Mikhail, please meet me on the stage, ma'am. As she's clapping it up, I wanted to first, and excuse me for not even doing it, I want to acknowledge my mother in the back of the room, Miss Rogers. Love you, Mom. You're amazing. My mom was the type of mother who would gather my brother and my sister and I weekly together when we were younger to allow us the opportunity to have a voice in the home and share our concerns with respect to one another. And I wouldn't be the person that I am had she not sowed that seed in me as a child, because I do it with my daughter. I do check-ins regular as a parent as well. So thank you, Mom. You're amazing. I can keep going on and on, but just know I appreciate you. You are queen to me, and I thank God for you. So, Mikhail.
So, just tell them a little bit about what I do. Hello, everyone. My name is Mikhail Daniels. I am also a therapist. I am over an organization called GLOW. GLOW stands for Girls Learning to Become Outstanding Women. So we talk about trauma, and I'm specializing in trauma because when I realized as a mentor, I'm not doing enough. But like Ms. Graham said before she came, sometimes we fight against what God has called us to do, because I still wanted to be in the streets. I still wanted to party. So when I accepted him utilizing me, and one of my business partners is into ministry really heavy. I grew up in ministry. My granddad was a pastor, but she helped me realize that GLOW was my ministry. So when I embraced it and I allowed God to utilize me to talk to those little girls that everyone's giving up on, it hurts my heart when people say there's no hope for the youth that we serve, because I know every youth that comes through my doors, there's hope for her. So we got to stop doing that. Let's hear from their voice. And like one of the panelists said, sometimes they just want to be heard. That's it. That's all. So what I do at GLOW is we work on the social and emotional needs of our young ladies, because I know that, and we just became evidence-based, thank you, God. Yes. So every youth that comes through my door, it's evidence-based that they will have an increase in confidence, because I believe that confidence starts within, and when you have a certain level of confidence, it's just certain things you will not do. I know that because I was once that little girl who lacked confidence and didn't know who I was. I'm still working on that, and that's why GLOW is everything to me, and I thank God for utilizing me, but it also shows that there's a decrease in aggression, because one, we need confidence so we can hold our heads up no matter what room we walk in, and then we need to learn how to I don't tell my girls don't get angry. I just teach them how do you channel that, and what's the behaviors you do after you become angry. That's the key. So we got to start installing, but I need the help of y'all. So thank you for even allowing me to speak. I need y'all help. When y'all see a girl walking like this with her head up, tell her, beautiful, you're beautiful, queen. I see you. Ask her about her day. Anything simple like that. I need y'all, when y'all see these young men and some girls now who's still in the cars, because GLOW is into the jails now, and the girls are still in them too, ask them what's up. You need something to do? Connect them to resources instead of us gossiping with our family saying a shame it is on the news and this. Let's do something about it. But I'm just one person, and I need y'all help as well. You know I go on when I talk about my youth, so thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you. So lastly, we're going to have Mr. Daniel Harris come on up, sir. Put that bass down. Meet me on the stage, sir. I grew up with Daniel, y'all. I've been knowing Daniel since I was 10, and I'm in my 30s. So just do the math there. But I've seen Daniel. He's seen me. We walk with one another as friends through life. Life, man, right? All right, now it's about to go down, okay?
Good evening. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Have you gotten anything out of this so far? Yes. Let's give it up for the facilitator, Dr. Marika Rogers. I love Miss Jackie, too. I just want to throw that out there. Yeah, absolutely. I am going to be before you very shortly. I know everybody says that, but I really mean it. I'm just going to say a couple of words as far as what God gave me to share and bring to the table for this event, okay? Today's event is centered around facing trauma and understanding the power of positioning yourself to be a recipient of divine healing. Many of us in this room have experienced the pain and the weight that is connected to traumatic experiences. However, the weight of trauma is minuscule compared to the weight of glory that begins to overtake your life once you begin to take responsibility for your own healing process. Oftentimes I'm speaking from a man's perspective, oftentimes we as men fail to admit that we are broken, which causes everything we touch to be broken. Because, watch this, we cannot amend what we do not acknowledge, right? I would like to present to everyone under the sound of my voice a few transferable principles about healing through a story found in the book of John. I would say turn to your Bible, but, turn to your application. If you have a Bible app, open it up real quick. We're going to do this real quick because I know we got to get folks back home. It's John, the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verse 1 through 9. Very quickly. John, chapter 5, 1 through 9. When you got it, say, I got it. Okay, we're going to keep it going. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered porches. Verse 3, here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. The blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? We're going to come back to that. Do you want to get well? Verse 7, sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Verse 8, then Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. I'm going to make this very quick. I'm going to give you a couple of points, 5 points. We're going to do this real quick, 5 points. Point number 1 is based on verse number 3. Here, a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. The blind, the lame, the paralyzed. Now, please keep in mind that these principles that I'm about to share are only for people who really desire true healing. If you don't, then this portion of the event ain't necessarily for you. All right? This is only for people who want to be a recipient of divine healing. If that's you, say, that's me. Point number 1, your company describes your condition. And your connections describe your complacency. We're going to write that down. I want you to write that down somewhere in your phone because these are transferable skills that you can use along your healing journey. Your company describes your condition, and your connections describe your complacency. If you look around in your circle and you are not inspired to be better, you don't have a circle. You have a cage in which you are bonded to your own slavery of trauma. If you look around in your circle and you are not thoroughly inspired to be the best version of you that God created for you to be, you do not have a circle, you have a cage. All right? Here's a rhetorical question. You ain't got to raise your hand. You ain't got to let nobody know I'm talking to you. But here's a rhetorical question. If your company is mirroring your condition, what does their reflection say about you? Okay. All right, I know I wasn't going to get no amen. That's why I bring my own amen with me. Okay. If your company is mirroring your condition, what does their reflection say about you? Okay, so we're going to go on to point number 2. It's based on number 5, verse 5. One who had been an invalid for 38 years. This man had been in this condition for 38 years, nearly 4 decades. He had been an invalid for 38 years, right? It never stated that this man was 38 years old, right? In fact, some theologians suggest that he was well over half a century old, right? But he had been in this condition for 38 years. More often than not, when the Bible was pointing out a passage dealing with an individual with an infirmity, it says he was born blind, he was born crippled, so on and so forth. But it never stated that he was born like this. He wasn't born like this. He wasn't designed like this. This wasn't what God had in mind for his life when he created him, right? So point number 2 is the question: are you living below your predestined design? Are you living below your predestined design? Are you allowing trauma and brokenness to cause you to live below your predestined design? God did not create you to just sit there and wallow on the mat of depression. He's calling for you, each and every person that has come to this event, to stand up, to get up and take your rightful place, and take your place as he had in mind, which is whole, which is at peace with your inner self, okay? Point number 3. Going through this very quickly. Point number 3 is based on verse number 6. Verse number 6 says, when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, Jesus asked the invalid, do you want to get well? Now, when I was reading this, I thought to myself, wait a minute. God asked the question. That is very interesting to me, considering that one of the characteristics of God is him being omniscient. Let me break this down real quick. Omniscient are 3 base words, right? Omni, psi, and ent. Omni meaning all-encompassing. Psi is where we get the English word science, the art of knowing. ENT is the base word for entity. So if God is an all-knowing entity, why would he ask a question? Okay. And God showed me something. He says, I do not ask a question to gain understanding. He asks a question to highlight what you're overlooking. Okay? Yeah. So this is something else that God showed me while I was studying healing, this healing at the pool. God does not ask a question because he doesn't know the answer. He asks us a question to expose how far out of alignment we've become with his will. Adam, where are you? Adam, where are you? He's not asking him for geographical location. He's asking him to let him know you've come outside of your predestined design. And if you do not, you cannot amend what you don't acknowledge, right? So my question is, where are you today? After the panel has come up, after we've shared all of these jewels and had these moments in this healing gathering, let me ask you where you sit. Where are you? Are you allowing brokenness to be the bondage in which you stay enslaved to, or do you really want to be healed for real? I have 2 more points and I'm done. Point number 4 is based on verse number 7. Sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. The man in the worst condition, he came up with every excuse imaginable to explain why he was broken. He came up with every excuse to explain why he was in the condition he was in. Here's the point. This is point number 4. You know you're being controlled by trauma when you rehearse your reasons more than you dream about your results. Yeah. You know you're being controlled by trauma when you rehearse your reasons more than you dream about your results. Oh, I'm like this because X, Y, and Z. I went through this because X, Y, and Z. Well, if you keep rehearsing that rehearsal will become a part of your identity. But if you begin to dream and see yourself as the whole person that you were predestined to become, I guarantee you your healing will become more tangible, right? Another part for point number 4 is in order to be healed, please listen, in order to be healed, you have to divorce the pain and marry the promise. Yeah. I have never been married, but I have had many loved ones and friends who have experienced a divorce. And in church settings, we look down on these people. We say, oh, God can't use them. But from my understanding, it is a divorce is someone, in layman's terms, is just one person saying, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of the rejection, enough of the abandonment. I've had enough. It is time for this to end. So what I'm saying to you, what I'm suggesting to you is you need to divorce your trauma. Divorce the pain and marry the promise, right? This is the last point. This is the last point, and it is based on verse number 8. Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." And at once the man was cured. Get up. You have to get up. I don't know who this is for. I don't know who's in the room right now. It's none of my business. Whatever you are experiencing is between you and God. But I came here today to tell somebody it's time for you to get up. You've been looking for confirmation to see if you are on the right path, and I'm here to tell you today that it is your time to get up. You do not have to lay there and take trauma. Trauma is not your identity. It is an experience. And when you become willing to amend and acknowledge, you will begin to live on the level of your predestined design. One last thing. Jesus came there and he healed this man. A real miracle, authentic miracle happened at this pool. Isn't it amazing that there were hundreds, if not thousands of people at this pool and only one person? Jesus came there for that one person. I came here to also tell you that the healing process, it is a selfish process. Now, if you don't want healing, that's your business. But since God is in the room and his presence is here, if you don't want yours, then please, I plan on being the one that he came to help. I plan on being the one that he came to help. And I just want to close with just reminding you, you cannot amend what you do not acknowledge, and ask yourself if you are living below or above your predestined design. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Come on now, Daniel. So y'all see why I had to save him for the end? Everyone, all the panelists were awesome. But oftentimes when I do these type of gatherings, if there's not a male presence, someone that can speak from a male perspective, Daniel is always willing to step in and represent for the men. So thank you, Daniel, for the awesome message you just shared. So many gems. I'm like, bring that back. Encore now. Awesome. So as I was standing over there, I started to think to myself, concerning everyone here, concerning those that are watching, what if your healing from that trauma can heal your body? Migraine headaches, you name it, whatever, diabetes, high blood pressure. What if that trauma caused that to come into your life? And the message or the scriptures that you used, oftentimes we don't think as believers. I'm speak as myself, me as a believer. Sometimes we may not think about our mental and emotional health so much, but we're so focused on our spiritual lives. Let me get to church. Let me read this scripture. Let me pray. Let me sit in God's presence. But are we thinking about our mental and our emotional health as well? And I truly believe that that's one of the things concerning the church at large. We don't really think about that. And unfortunately, sometimes we see some members of the body of Christ, they may lose their lives due to different physical illnesses within our body. But could it have been if they healed mentally or emotionally from something, maybe they would still be here? Maybe. We don't know, right? But it's a possibility. So I just want for you all just to take a moment. Whatever it is that you're thinking about, if it's not regarding trauma, let's get focused on that right now, if that's not the forefront of your mind right now. So if there's something that has occurred in your life as a child, as a youth, as an adult, that has gone unhealed, and it may be connected to another individual. If that person is here, maybe you want to reconcile with them. If you have their number, maybe you want to call them, text them. Reconcile. Take the power from that person that's holding that over your head. A lot of times we have misunderstandings with other individuals, family members, friends, associates. And because that person may have said that trigger word, that person didn't know that that word was a trigger to you. Only you knew that. Unless you shared that with them, that's a whole nother story. But I really want you all to apply, to take this moment to apply the different tools that have been shared today. Because if you all just came here to listen to different testimonies and hear clinicians speak and music and song and all of that, that's all beautiful. But I'm really about impact. I don't like putting gatherings together without impacting the lives of others. And so let's really do some inner workings today. And even if that person, even if you are here supporting someone else, support that person. Because sometimes we may not have a direct trauma that has happened to us, but vicariously hearing it, it can impact us. Because if one of my friends, I have friends out in the audience right now, have family members out in the audience right now, if I hear that they're going through something, that's going to impact me. Vicariously, I'm connected to that. So even if you have to remove the burden of someone else's situation off of you, maybe you need to cut the ties of that bag that you're carrying around, that trauma bag, that invisible trauma bag you're dragging around. Everywhere you go, you show up, your name is trauma. Well, before you leave today, can you take that moment to remove that name tag that says trauma? Those lenses that you're using to look and see, can you remove those lenses that's called trauma? Because if you truly do the work and you apply it daily, because this is a daily thing, this is not just a one and done. I want to make that note. This is not a one and done type of situation. This is daily. We make a commitment to not walk in trauma because those memories will try to creep up. You can get healed today and you can walk out, tomorrow comes and something can happen that can remind you of that trauma, and then boop, there it go again. And someone has shared earlier today that healing process, that healing journey, it looks different for everyone. And one day you may be at your all-time highest, and then the next day you may be at a low. You may feel like you're kind of teetering, going back and forth. But I encourage you to walk one foot in front of the other. And as long as you don't stay in that old place, you're on the right track. Don't stay there. If you go back one step, don't stay there. All right, I'm here. I'm acknowledging that I'm here today. What I'm going to do with that? These tools that were just shared to me on September 4th, am I going to reach up in my toolbox? Am I going to use those today so I can move forward? Make that decision. Today, you all made a decision to show up. You didn't have to come in here and spend almost 2 hours with us and listen. So I truly believe, y'all, please hear my heart. I prayed over this gathering. And my heart's desire is to see individuals healed, family members healed, the community healed. That is truly my passion. This is why I'm in this field. I've been wanting to be a therapist since I was 7. Told my mom and my dad, I want to be a therapist. Why? Because out of my 7-year-old eyes, I was seeing the trauma of the community. And I'm in my 30s now, and I still have that same passion and that same desire to see a community healed. This is only one of many. These healing gatherings will continue monthly. So again, I would like to thank the City of Light Church for opening up their doors. I truly want to thank you all, because y'all didn't have to do it. I'm not a member of this church. I attend Global Outreach. And to say Pastor Brian, the senior leader of this ministry, I didn't even have to say a whole lot about what this gathering was about. He saw it and he jumped right on board. The same day I spoke to him about it, he had me come in here and look at the space and said, what do you need? So I thank Pastor Brian. I thank the City of Light Church. You all are family to me now, so hey, cousin. And I'm going to be here for a little bit after we close out. Do you all have any questions Maybe you all have wanted to raise your hand and ask. So this is an opportunity for prayer. I am a woman of God. I'm not going to force anything on anyone. So trust me when I say, if you would like prayer, I'm here. I have others that are willing to pray with you. So if you would like to come up or if you want to step to the side, I will meet you wherever you are. This is no force, but I am a woman of God, and I wouldn't be here without God. Yes, brother. Yeah, is he? Oh, he left. Okay. Any individual from City of Light Trade want to have last words at all? No? Okay. Well, if you would like prayer, you can just meet me down at the front. Thank you all so much. And I'm going to be down here for anyone who would like prayer. If anyone want to come up and assist me with the prayer, please come up as well. Amen. And also, this is an opportunity if you just want to sit at your seat and let God heal you. If you want to deal with whatever you're dealing with at your chair, that's between you and God. God will have his way. Amen.